Yesterday we spoke about Shemo B'Machol, about dancing.
Oh, what?
We spoke about dancing, circular dancing, Shemo B'Machol.
Oh. A very special thing that we discussed yesterday and we learned yesterday. That ultimately the world will be raised up to a divine level. There will be no longer a difference between the world, presence of the Mebishn, and higher than world. That was the Mochel. Mochel. No. So can you finish up, Rabbi? What's a Mochel?
I don't know. We were like 6 lines from the bottom.
Yeah, I know where you are.
Oh. We spoke about, the big encirclement.
Right.
From above in the higher Makif.
Right. That's the Mochel.
Yeah, Shmo will be seen in the higher perspective.
Right.
That means, the general topic is that worldly is higher than divine.
Not divine, oil.
Oh, higher than or, okay. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you say? Where do you say we should start?
No, we start where you want, but we finished more or less 6 lines from the bottom.
From the bottom. Okay. Okay, whatever it is.
What is that? We spoke about the kav. That is source lemaila, but when it touches world below, it will be united with Or Ein Sof.
That's not 6 lines, that's 2 lines from the bottom.
I don't know. I'm We start wherever you want. So you decide.
All right, we'll start 2 lines from the bottom. The line begins with Ranat, Rej Nun Tes. And the Rebbe explains just before that ultimately the Kav, the Kav, which means the divine revelation that comes to the world, is called a Kav. The reason it's called a kav is because a kav means a line. Because the divine revelation coming to the world is a narrow line. In order that the world should be able to process it. Ultimately, the kav reaches all the way down. When the kav comes into the world, it reaches to what's called the oyer hasevef, the oyer eliki, the divine oyer that is higher than the world, that surrounds the world. And the Rebbe said, because the oyer hasevef, the oyer that surrounds the world from all sides. So even though initially the kav, the line of divine expression, starts from the top, from the upper part of the sevef, of the surrounding oyer, and goes on into world. Then ultimately, it goes all the way down until it reattaches it to the surrounding oyer at the bottom of the world, at the other side. So that's like something, a circle. A circle can start from the top, but if you follow the circle all the way down, at the bottom, the circle surfaces again. This is the oyer hasevef mamash. This is the oyer hasevef, the oyer eliki, the divine oyer that surrounds the world. And ultimately, the world will meet up with it again at the bottom, and it reaches full revelation. Which means that when the world becomes fully worldly, physical, bodily, all the way at that level, it reattaches and recognizes back the oyer hasevef, the supreme divine presence. And then it reveals the divine presence in a worldly fashion. And we will start 2 lines from the bottom. The line begins with Ranat, Reishon Tes, which is a reference. And we go straight in, okay. And for this reason, therefore, since that the divine revelation in the future will come after reaching the bottommost level, and then it recognizes Elokus at that level. Therefore, Yiyeh HaYisrael Deliosit. So the supreme quality of the future, what will be ultimately accomplished, and the highest level that will be reachable then will be Masha Haguf Yiyeh Elokus. It is where the body, the guf, the physical body, will be godliness. Looking at the physical body, what will be identified is godliness rather than worldliness. This is when the real source and power behind the creation will be revealed, which is the highest level of Elokus, called oyer hasevef, the divine power higher than world, that creates world. Therefore, it is as a result of the bodily refinement and elevation, this great divine revelation will come about as a result of the bodily refinement. And now 2 lines from the bottom. Ve'al kein, and therefore, Ye ha-yisrin li-yosid, the yisrin, the advantage and the special quality that will be provided li-osid in the future, the very special quality provided in the future will be Masha Haguf Yelakus. Will be in the fact that the Guf will be Elakus. The Guf, the physical body, will be seen as a godly presence. And the Rebbe already explained, and this will review. Now, to recognize Elokus, godliness, we can only do it through the oyer, through the divine inspiration. The physical world, worldly presence, conceals godliness. It tells you it's also a tangible world. But in truth, this tangible world is a divine creation. Not only is it a divine creation, but it is maintained by the divine presence. It represents the divine presence. Except now, that is not visible. We cannot recognize it. But le'osid, that will be recognizable. What is going to be different? Why can it not be recognized now and will be recognizable in the future? Now it is not recognizable because now everything that we recognize we have in the world is what's called the kav, something which is given to the world in a measured worldly manner. That world should be able to process it. The osid, the world itself will reveal that actually it is a divine presence. And in truth, as we already discussed, and this is what we're coming to, the physical presence, the power to create the physical world represents a divine power superior to divine power to bring light, divine light into the world. This is the pshat that the physical will represent a more powerful, a higher level of divine power than the spiritual. As I said, one of these days, this is something which each one of us has to attempt to find in his own intelligence. The principle that the divine truth is represented more completely and more totally through the physical world than through the spiritual aspects in the world. And as we quoted from the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says, that to create a world, to create a physical entity that is of such caliber of existence that denies any source, that stands completely on its own, is possible. That capability to create such an entity that is completely independent of everything else is within the himself. It cannot come as a result of any kind of oil of revelation. And the morsel for that is all quality in the world is being.
Rabbi Paltiel, you're kind of cutting off. If it's possible to repeat that, please.
What?
You were cutting off. If it's possible to repeat that, please.
I know which, from where?
The last sentence or two. Just
okay. I really don't know where the last sentence starts, but I'll start from some meaningful point.
the muffler where that is.
What we have now is that which we realize through our faculties that's called seichel and midas. Seichel and midas can only recognize what's called oir, kilui, expressions, divine expressions, concepts. But the truth of the divine presence is not recognizable in seichel. The truth of divine presence is recognizable and is expressed in the very lowest level of the creation. The physicality, the body aspect in the creation. What is unique in the body aspect of the creation relative to the spiritual, the nefesh, the seichel and midas? It is that seichel and midas do not stand on their own. Even what we understand in seichel, there's always a sense, where does the seichel come from? How come I understand it? What is the life force behind the seichel? It is not, so to speak, a standalone creation. The body, or even in seichel, even in koiches anefesh, even in koiches, human koiches, thought is of a higher spiritual quality than speech. Thought is something which is directly connected to the nefesh. Speech is an external sound. It's created by the lowest level in the person's structure. Even to the extent that today we were able to replicate speech artificially, sound, but thought cannot be replicated. For thought, you need the resource of the neshama, of a living neshama. This Indian, that speech can be replicated at a physical level, is attesting to the principle that speech is rooted, it is based, it is empowered by a deeper and a higher quality in the nefesh than thought. This high quality in the nefesh is representative of the source of creation that can create what's called the yesh me'ayin. It is this power of creation, yesh me'ayin, that creates a worldly entity that is not dependent on inspiration, on real creation and standalone creation. This represents the highest revelation of the power of the God, the divine presence. This inyan, this divine presence that is represented through the physical and on the physical level, this is what is going to be recognized in the future. Right now, when you look physical, we see the physical world, we see worldliness. But La'osid, this is the gil of the Osid, will be that when you see the physical world, you will see the divine power that enables it, which is a much higher divine power than what you recognize in your Seichel and Midas. Is that clear?
Yep.
Okay, so now let's start from the second line from the bottom again. Okay. Okay.
Hello?
Yes.
I'm still not so clear about it.
You're not too clear? Okay.
That,
all right.
so what are we
reply.
saying? We're saying that, let's say in Tort, there is more, there's not that power demonstrated in Tort than in Dibur.
Right.
Because Tort, let's say, is an emanation of the Nefesh, and Dibur is the creation. Is this
yes.
Okay, so the power of creation is what demonstrates more the source than the emanation of the source itself.
It demonstrates a higher element from the source. Yes, absolutely.
The higher element that it can create.
But listen, we're not going to get through this through question. Follow the following. Behave doimim, semeach, chai, and medaber. 4 categories in the creation. Doimim is the inanimate physical presence world. Then there is semeach, there is a plant life that has an element of life. Doimim has no element of life at all. Semeach has an element of life in vegetation. Chai has an element of life at the level of the Bachai, of the animal. Then they have Medaber. Medaber is a human being who is able to speak. So if the human being, this is the supreme presence in the world, creation, divine presence in the world, why is it called Medaber? It should say masculine. Why Medaber? The reason we call it Medaber is that Medaber aspect reveals the divine power in the human being much more deeply, much more completely than the masculine power. In what way? Why is Medaber represent a more completed union from the divine power in the world, in the human being? The reason starts with this, we can think into and see. The reason that Medaber, that Dibur, represents a deeper divine power in the human being than even understanding and seichel is that Dibur creates and enables a human being to create something that becomes separate from him. A real independent presence.
Okay.
Seichel cannot
Okay.
create that.
Okay. Thank you. I think I got the point.
Okay, very good. This capability of creating something separate is rooted and needs a power that is of its own truth, of its own presence. Cannot be dependent on anything else. This requires a presence that is true in and of itself.
So in other words, to say that that this yesh, to be our own yesh, he needs to take not from the emanation of the source. He needs to be more like the source, the truth itself.
That's correct. And the big thing in this is that in the source itself, the neshama, is also connected, dependent, gets its highest from Hashem, from Elokus. So therefore, even in the neshama aspect, in the seichel and midas, you see a divine spirit, but not divine power. When a person is able to say it in words, speak it out, he can analyze his thought and his idea, his seichel, in such a level that it becomes an entity unto itself. That means that he has a full-fledged recognition of a divine truth. This is illustrating on our level the power, the significance of bringing things down at a lower level. This is what Rebbe says here. The guf, the body itself. The body itself reveals, it presents a divine power superior and higher than the divine power that's represented in the neshama.
And lower here we mean more material, more yes.
Yes, more material, more physical, more worldly. And furthermore, to put it, so to speak, put your finger on the thing, something that is completely standalone. A real creation. You cannot think without experiencing what you think. Experiencing in your neshama, in your midas, in your seichel. But you can say words that you have no idea what you're saying. This power to create, to emanate something that is completely standalone is the pinnacle of a divine power that can create something that's called yesh me'ayin.
So this is like a yesh ma'ayin, the dipur chaylik from the person himself. His yesh ma'ayin.
Yes, that's it. In the person, that's why the person is called medaber, because medaber is the highest level that any creature can express. Why medaber? Don't you thinking, understanding? No, medaber, that shows that he is a real primitive.
When he speaks without thinking first, that doesn't really have meaning, though.
True. The truth is, you cannot speak without meaning. You can speak without thinking at the point, at that moment when you speak it, what your meaning of your speech is. But speech per se, every word, the word is a meaning.
I thought the point was that you can speak without thinking, means that speaking is something different, something, it's a yes on its own, and you bring your thoughts in that speech, on that dipper.
That's right. But then when you bring it in that speech, you bring it down to a point where you bring it to a real presence in the world. You can't even tell, but do you understand what you're saying when you're not thinking? Understand what you're saying.
What does that mean? You bring your thought into the speech after you already spoke. How does that make sense?
Can you repeat what just now said?
Yes.
You can? How come you can?
Because it's real. It's real to
Because
me.
it's real.
Okay.
Even though you're not right now defining it.
Mm-hmm. Right. You once thought about it, at least.
That's right.
Okay. Uh-huh.
This is all Mishalim, please understand. To understand the principle that the ultimate power in creation is manifest at the lowest level. This is why we have Doimim, Tzemeach, Chai, and then Medaber. Why is he called Medaber? He called thinker. We can concoct in Seichel, Sichli, Medaber. Because the highest power in the human being is the ability to take his Seichel, to take his Neshama qualities, and to translate it at the lowest level, worldly level. To make it, to have it, to show how it is a reality on the world level. This is the power of the human being.
It seems like if someone repeats themselves, not as a continuous flow from the previous thoughts, that it won't have the same effect in the world on the recipients.
We'll take that up later.
Okay.
I want to complete this thing. I want to ask you a very simple question. When you have to go home, you know where you're going. Lahabu, a dog, also knows how to find its home. What is the difference between the dog finding its home and Lahabu, the human being, finding its home? Hello?
Mm-hmm. Good question.
Okay, it's a good question. I want to have a good answer.
Mm-hmm.
The dog has no idea what he's doing. He's doing what is quote unquote instinctive. A human being knows that he's going home. A dog
The dog
doesn't
also
know.
knows it's going instinctive, but this instinct tells us to go home.
There's no thought in it at all. A dog doesn't have the intelligence to think. We've said it a million times. Animals aren't conscious of what they're doing.
I understand, yeah. But we have to now we're going into fully identifying it.
Okay, then I'm backing off.
No, don't back off. I want you to be with me.
I'm with you. I'm just
Okay.
listening now.
Here's a difference. I don't know about I ever think it.
Now your phone starting to cut off for some reason.
Okay.
Hopefully it'll stop.
Phone, stay on. Okay,
Exactly.
Can you hear me now?
Is it plugged? Is it plugged in? Is it
Can
plugged
you hear me
in?
now? You can hear me now?
Is it plugged in?
The video is very clear by me.
Yeah, we hear
Right,
it.
but every day,
Okay.
every day around this time it goes down, and
It
I
goes
think
down.
it's not. Is it
Gets
plugged
tired.
in? Is it
All right.
plugged in?
Okay, here's a point with which I'd like to express.
What's that? Is the phone plugged in?
No, it's not plugged in. I'm not, but the phone is fully charged.
Oh,
It's fully charged. It is.
Okay, fully charged, fine. Okay.
Yeah. Let's understand the following. We have a house. A house is a structure of 4 walls on the roof and so forth. This same house, if this were built at the other side on Mars, you could not refer to it as a home. Why not? It's the same house. The reason you could not refer to it as a home is that the house is not a house on account of the 4 walls on the ceiling and the floor. A house is a house on account of it is encompassing something within the world, not a structure independent to itself. It encompasses something. What does it encompass? A real reality in the world. This is why a house has to be on earth. There has to be a place that human beings are meant to live in. Then it's a house. Then it's a home. Otherwise, it's a structure of 4 walls on the roof and totally devoid of any significance and meaning. Let's analyze this. The 4 walls on the ceiling is exactly the same, except that they're missing the environment where they are built. This environment, this is a divine truth in the creation. They're missing a divine reality. They have walls and so forth, they have a structure, but they're missing a divine reality. The difference between the human beings going home and Lahab the dog going home. The dog is going to his house. The human being is going home to a place where he belongs, that has a divine meaning to him. The dog is going to a structure that protects him against the wind, against the rain, or this is where he has to go. He does not relate, does not recognize that this is part of the bigger truth in the world. There's no cognizance of that at all. The human being at all times, in the smallest or the biggest of his activities, is aware that he is functioning in a big, godly world. Which is why the human being is in constant awareness that he is responsible for his actions. Not that his actions have effect. He's responsible. Who is he responsible to? Responsible to the creator of the world.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot act in a despicable manner in the Mebash's world. Nobody sees me. Nobody's affected by this. Makes no difference. This is what the human being is.
It's like to say when someone goes in his like in a place like where the door goes, there's a wall and a roof. But when you go in a house which has an owner, like to say, you're responsible. And the same thing here, we go in, there's a big reality. We're going to in a living world. So what does this make responsible? I'm trying to get this point, but which was just
Okay. Please listen. This is very, very important. This is really the distinct difference between the Havlo, the dog, and the human being. When you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do, you say, where do you see the Melech HaYakayim? And you say it with such clarity. First person reference, Lefanecha. Where do you see it? You see it in the principle that if I see a world, I know the world is a creation. The world did not make itself. This is the human cognizance, recognition of reality itself. This is why we are so entranced by the sight of sunrise or sunset, because this represents not just a natural process, represents of how the world is intended to be. There is a dawn, and there is a day, and then there is evening, and so forth. It's a whole process, a creation process. Which means it represents, so to speak, you could say a living process. Living process, life does not create itself. Life has a living source. It's called an neshama. Neshama means the principle of life, not the function of life, but the principle of life. When you wake up in the morning, you immediately recognize, a new morning. A new morning. the world is refreshed. You are refreshed. This refreshing aspect is a reflection of the union that it is that life is something and the world is something which is being provided, being maintained, which is given.
Coming back to the point of being responsible.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the connection by that the human being is responsible? Because
I'll explain to you what responsible means. Responsible means responsible means very simple this. You are not going to walk in the street without clothes. Why not? It's nice and hot. I don't need clothes. It's not raining. It's not cold. I don't need clothes. But you're not going to do that. Why? Because you recognize that you're in an environment that is a respectable environment. And if you walk without clothes, it shows that you're too stupid to appreciate the respectable environment in which you function.
Okay, so what is responsible?
This is responsibility. This is responsibility.
Why not respect? Why responsible?
No, the respect comes from responsibility. If you do not feel the need to recognize this union, which means it's responsibility, then you won't have respect.
Okay.
Time check, it's 4 minutes to 9 o'clock.
Wow, are you sure your time is not being speeded up over there?
Feels like it, maybe, but just looking at the big blue Timex.
All right. Anyways, I think we okay. Thank you. I think we were able to get some clarity, make some progress in understanding these principles here.
Can I,
1 second. Is it correct to say that when there's a yesh, a standalone entity, there is the truth of God Himself rather than His koiches? In other words, God gave over His truth Himself in this yesh.
That's correct.
Okay.
He didn't give over, but He represented, revealed.
Okay.
there's more revelation in a Metzius than
That's
in
right.
qualities. Earlier in the shir, there was right at the beginning describing Kav. Why do we say that the line is, the Kav is the way Elokus is revealed or acting? We
Okay,
also have
here's the
Stoivev, I
principle.
mean.
Yeah, I understand. The principle of the Kav is, just as we are communicating now, you're thinking and I'm thinking. Let us say if we were communicating via our thoughts. Whatever I conceptualize, you already know at the conceptualized level. So you know it, but there is not going to be the aspect of communication.
Right. But communication.
Do you want to finish up? Go ahead.
Communication is between separate entities. So what are we're saying here? The world is separate, and so therefore there has to be a sequence and a line
One second.
I thought the whole point of Elokus
One
is
second.
that
One second. No, you jumped too far. The world is separate because it is intended to be separate.
Oh, so as if to say he creates a setting that is nifrad, and then he reaches out to it by a sequential manner in an orderly fashion.
Oh, that's right. He wants it to be that's why it's Bor Elikim. He creates it to be a separate entity, so that there is a complete gift of being, of experience in the creation.
Okay, and then he makes contact, like you were saying, communication. He makes contact by means of a cub, but that's what's being said, right? But it does seem like
one second, you're jumping too fast. Mitzvah cub means that he provides the world with a means to appreciate itself, to appreciate its creator, and to appreciate the value of its existence. That's a cub.
Okay, good. And then we do say stuff like ever present everywhere, or soivev, which sort of indicates something beyond kav, right? Would that be fair?
That's right. And this is what we are attempting to identify here. The truth is that not only existence is a divine provision, but listen to this. Please see if you subscribe to that, you understand what that is. The possibility of existence is a divine provision. The possibility of existence is a completely different domain, different level.
Okay. And the point that was said, the kav has an origin, and then it goes through and through, as if to say, touching the circle at the other side. The diameter touches in two places.
Right.
The point here is that, and this has been our main point, that Metzius is a unique indicator of him, right? Is that Gashmi, the body, that speech is a very unique and special indicator, a better indicator than thought was today's.
Right. When you think what you're experiencing in your nefesh. Speech, you're creating something external. This creating something. Well, okay, go ahead.
I don't know if I'm creating something external, but I'm acting in an external domain, right? I didn't invent.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I didn't invent this language, but I'm taking part. I'm a participant in an external domain, right? Is that the point? I'm having agency. I think the point is I'm having agency, and I'm active beyond my own realm. I'm now going outside, right? Is that the point?
I'd like to try to identify it as much as possible. Yes, what you say is true. I'm acting outside of my own being. The point is that this acting out of my own being is due to the fact that I have recognition that this outside of my own being encompasses me and the whole world. Not really, I'm not precarious, so to speak, and hanging on a string. I'm solid, acting outside of my own being.
And so what? So that shows that's a Mila.
That shows that is expressing my recognition and my relating to the Creator Himself.
But that's okay, good. But it's a little bit like saying, you know what, this stone is more real than my thoughts. I mean, it's a little bit like saying, okay, the external world has a great reality, but the point here is
Wait a second. You're going too fast. We spoke about this the other day. You're walking from place to place. This walking from place to place. You're constantly in the worldly reality. Even though you change your place. Which is real, this place or this place?
And that's the point, right? That's all godly.
That's right. Even though this place and this place are two separate places, but there is an overall reality which you're not living, you're constantly functioning within that.
Okay, and that occurs, that's the kav touching the bottom, right? That's right. That is, and that's the mila. Why? That's the mila of the guf, right? That's the special feature of the body and physicality in that
it touches the bottom. Seichel also has a divine cognizance. But it has a divine cognizance when there's a meaningful cognizance, not just plain process, thought. There's no significance in thought, there's significance in speech. For example, why is the significance in speech? Because speech represents your recognition, your connection to the bigger reality. This is why you can go and speak to someone else. When you think about somebody else, the thought means in you. When you speak, that goes across the world.
good. I can't help feeling like we're saying the rock is a better witness for godliness than the human being and all of his thoughts.
True.
And if that's true, then it would seem like the world during the first 5 days, 6 days of creation is just fine without man.
True, except that without man, there would be no one to appreciate it.
So man and his thoughts have this role of acknowledging the truth of the rock, right?
That's right.
That it's got, okay.
And man also talks, doesn't just think.
That's right.
Yeah, and that talking is the superiority. It's the rock feature of man.
Yeah, it's the rocks.
That's why your being is called medaber rather than machashev.
Yeah, and related to that, he's also a Mahalech, right? Mahalech would be even lower than Medaber, right?
No. The Mahalech principle is not talking about the ability to walk on the ground. Mahalech is talking about the ability to grow.
And Medaber is talking about the actual feature of
That's
speech
speech.
to
That's
others.
right. That's right.
Okay. Okay.
Ultimately, we're still on the same place in the Maimer, which we'll have to pick up tomorrow. Ultimately, this is all clarifying and bringing a focus to understand the meaning of physical function, of the goof action rather than the neshama action. And ultimately what this is saying, that the goof presence and the goof action is enabled by a superior, a much superior capability than the ability of thought. That's enabled by thought. Surely in our own activity, in our own function, thought is superior to action in terms of what we are able to do. Lahabdul, a dog can also walk and a horse can pull a chariot. But to identify the chariot and identify the destination and so forth, that is exclusively the property of the human being. And the human being himself, when he plans out or plots out, so to speak, a function, it is incumbent on him to plot out the function not just on the plan level, not just on the projection level, but all the way to the most final detail. And ultimately to bring it down to a practical accomplishment. Who is a carpenter? Not the one who can design a table, but one who can actually put it together. The human being has been endowed by his creator the ability to see from top to bottom. Which is to conceptualize a table and to build a table and to set it up properly. All right.
That's speech without if someone repeats themselves without the previous thoughts that were flowing into it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So
Thanks.